Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
Sorry for the delay. Welcome everyone to the June meeting of the Warren County Board of Supervisors. Please rise while Supervisor Dickinson leads us in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You should all have received the minutes of our May 15th meeting. Have us back up. Roll call.
Mr. Leggett?
Here.
Mr. Diamond?
Here.
Mr. McDevitt? Ms. Reamer? Here. Mr. Lowe?
Here.
Mr. Driscoll?
Here.
Mrs. Fraser?
Here.
Mr. Simpson?
Here.
Ms. Hogan?
Here.
Mr. Dickinson?
Here.
Mr. Merlino? Mr. Stroud?
Here.
Mr. Wild?
Here.
Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Stokel?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Hyde? Here. Mr. Gary?
Here.
Chairman Conover?
Here. You should all have received the minutes of our May 15 meeting. Chair will entertain a motion regarding the minutes. Motion by Mr. Strauss, Supervisor Strauss, second. Supervisor Beatty. Ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have some very special guests with us here today. Dan, the floor is all yours.
Good morning, everybody. First, I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for allowing us this opportunity every June to come up and kind of show off some of the talented kids in our county. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Dan Durkee. I am the Senior Health Educator here at Warren County. I've been here about 16 years. We've been running this program for 14. The TAR Wars program thankfully still receives funding from this board. They still see it as a priority, so I want to thank everybody who every year agrees that pursuing this type of programming in our community is worthwhile. So I do want to thank you because we do know a lot of our counterparts throughout the state do not get this type of support. So we do want to thank you with that. So really quick, just a little background. Obviously, tobacco has been a big burden for the public health field. We know that tobacco companies themselves have always targeted youth because beyond youth, they don't get new smokers, they don't get new tobacco users. And to combat that, we have partnered with the American Academy of Family Physicians to do this TAR Wars program. The program itself is an hour-long presentation given to each school in January and February to 4th to 5th grade students. Generally, I get to see the classes individually, which is nice instead of a large conference style. And we talk about the different things going on within tobacco. One is the obviously deceptive advertising practices. 2, the changing ways that tobacco companies are trying to get kids back involved with tobacco, knowing now that they've kind of had that bullseye on their back a long time. They aren't going away, they're just changing tactics. And so we try to stay on top of that. And obviously, the kids see it on TV, but reinforcing that, tobacco itself has no redeeming benefits. It's never been shown to do anything except for harm people. And so we try to make that clear. And after the program, the students are asked to create posters based on the information they've gathered and what they've already known. But we put a little spin on it. Instead of doing the negativity that we see in the ads or the scare tactics that you see from New York State, which actually have proven very effective, we actually asked the kids to put a positive spin on why their lives are going to be so much better without tobacco. And so that's the messaging that you see in a lot of these posters and things. But before I get into the posters, we do their work presentation. I am going to get on my soapbox because I'm allowed to do it once a year, so I'm doing it once a year. And I'm going to have a little just background on some of the stuff going on with tobacco. So for those of you who aren't aware, tobacco still remains the #1 killer. The kids have already seen this, so but for you, those who don't know, it kills about 480,000 Americans every year. This includes secondhand smoke. The rates among our high school students has dropped by 84% though from 2000 to 2016. I just got stats out yesterday actually. New York State's youth smoking rate is now below 10%, 8%. I'm not sure locally, sometimes it's hard to get local data being a smaller county, but we are seeing rates extremely low, which is good. Unfortunately, we still have an adult population of smokers that is about 1 in 4. It's higher than both our New York State and national averages, so we definitely need work with our adult populations, but that's not something for us necessarily. The hospital does a lot with that, but we need to keep that in mind. And for government officials, they always say, well, you know, what do we care? Well, there's your care at the bottom at $10.4 billion a year. And most of it's through Medicaid or Medicare dollars. It's not through private insurance. So we are paying for it one way or the other. So again, my soapbox here. Here's the thing, things are changing now. We know our adult rates have remained steady, which not what we want to see, but we're at least holding ground. And with the teens and young adults, we are seeing that promising not using traditional tobacco like we have in the past. However, big tobacco has not gone quiet on this. They've certainly seen it. So they've gone to something called ENDS. You might know them as vaping cigarettes or vaping products. We call them electronic nicotine delivery systems because that's exactly what they are. They're delivering the drug nicotine just in a different way. They become the next big marketplace. They bought up a lot of the private providers who come out and started creating these things. New York State youth rates for ENDS use has doubled from 10.5% to 20.6% in the last couple of years. So although our smoking rates are lower, the use of ENDS has gone up considerably, and that's unfortunate. Because a lot of times what we're starting to see now is that it actually leads into using traditional tobacco as well. So we have a fight ahead of us. What are the problems with ENDS? Because I know there's some people on the fence. Well, one, they're not regulated. They've done a really good job of arguing to not have regulations put in place. So the nicotine levels vary based on the product that people buy. The nicotine is the exact same nicotine. Most of it is actually derived from tobacco plants, and then it's just concentrated down. We also know that a lot of the flavoring agents, which is over 5,000 last I checked, flavor agents can cause some issues. If any of you have ever heard of popcorn lung, it's an issue that is caused with the chemicals from the flavor agents. Again, they are unregulated, so that's a difficult thing. The other thing is we've actually had several phone calls this year from local schools with ENDS products being in the school itself, being used during class time, not hidden in the locker room, because they have really changed. The technology is making it very difficult to stay on top. And we also know some of them are used for illegal substances like THC, which can be bought now in concentrates as well. To give you an idea of what schools are combating, if you look up here are all the different things that we see, and this is just a few. The bottom, they're not flash drives. They are called Juuls. For those who don't know, these are the latest product. They can be hidden in a shirt sleeve, in a waistband. They can plug into laptops to be recharged, and they can be utilized just about anywhere. So again, it's not going away. It's that these people are adapting, and youth see these as the next thing. So we have a problem ahead of us. We're going to keep battling. We're going to keep working with our local schools and our local areas to stay on top. And one of the things we ask is, one is continue the funding. Again, we thank you very much for that. We want more regulations on ENDS at the higher level of the FDA, who can then regulate what can and can't be put in these products. Again, they're pushing back, so hopefully that'll go through. And you can also increase the age of buying tobacco products, which I know is a hot button issue, from 18 to 21. This is not a pick on those who become adults at 18. Instead, it's a way to separate out our youth who are below 18 from the groups where they're often accessing it. If you have an 18-year-old who just graduates or is in school, they become an access point for those friends under the age of 18. By moving to 21, there's a gap within those age groups that then eliminate one source of tobacco products, including ENDS, from the younger youth who aren't supposed to have access to it. So that's why we push that. And to give you an idea, there are 5 states right now that have raised the purchase age, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Maine, and New Jersey. in our area, or in our state, excuse me, New York City was one of the first to go, but also locally, Albany and Schenectady counties have adopted these policies. So it's not new, it's not something that hasn't been unheard of. It is being done around here. The nice thing is state law has no preemption language again, so you can make local laws based on those ages. I know it's difficult and important, it's tough. Essex County unfortunately just missed getting theirs passed. If they had a couple more supervisors in attendance, sounds like it would have gotten through, but these are things to consider. If you're looking at costs later on in the future and the health of our communities, these are some things to consider going forward. So, with that, I love my soapbox, and we're going to get on to the kids here today. Now, I have left all the posters in for all of the schools. I thought it was only fair to show everybody, but a few of the kids who were able to make it today because they didn't have field days or trips, I'd like to recognize them. But if we could hold it until the end, that would be great. Feel free to take pictures though, okay? So our first one up is Cooper. She's a 4th grader. Now, when we first got the poster, we thought, boy, that's an awful graphic poster, a dinosaur eating a dinosaur. We realized he's eating a palm tree. And if you stay smoke-free, you can eat the new foods just like me. One of the reasons they come up with that is because you talk about losing your sense of taste and smell, and that food still tastes as well. So Cooper took that message. So Cooper, nice job. Can you come up and grab your certificate? There you go.
Don't be bossing around.
Let's see. A Bolton Elementary student, Riley Huck, obviously a soccer player. We're talking about sports and athletics and how tobacco harms you. And Riley obviously does soccer. So nice job, Riley. Right. Oh, you're the next one. I'm sorry. We had my mistake. I have to own up to it. We put her name on the wrong poster. Hers is actually this poster, and we put Leanna in the wrong way. So my fault. So here's Riley. Can you go? Here's Riley's poster again. I apologize. Right. Eat tobacco free. Nice job. My fault. I am very sorry. Now, Lena, this was Lena's. Lena, can you come up? Your soccer poster was really good. I apologize. My mistake. So it happens sometimes. We adults make mistakes. So nice job, though, Lena. All right. Next was a North Falls Middle School 5th grader. Looks like a cheerleader here. Live your life with glee. Stay tobacco free. Very nicely done. From Nora. Let's see, and then we had Hadley was there. Now you'll notice this one has a little extra on the bottom. It says Warren County overall 2nd place winner. Kittery Van Gelder from Hadley actually was selected as the 2nd place overall winner for the entire county out of all the submitted posters. So she has actually won 2 nice gift certificates to the Fun Spot for the day, on top of her poster being presented and being put into a calendar. So she gets a little extra. Nice job, Kittery. Nice work. This one here, this poster was great, but it's hard to see from the picture. These are all little like bedazzled little gems on there, and Alexis Graham's bedazzled stuff didn't want to stay on, so we had to re-glue everything. So it was a very nice poster. She did a great job, and we appreciated the poster. I'll give you a record. You know, kids are great. 4th graders are wonderful. Their imaginations are great. So let's see, Jackson Heights Elementary, Ava. Stay on the strings and be tobacco free. Obviously, somebody with musician talent. So we know that tobacco isn't going to help anybody hunt for trying to sing and be a musician. So we appreciate that. Was Ava the one who was missing downstairs? So yeah, there was one she was supposed to make it. Something came up. So all right. Ooh, Johnsburg. See a lot of stars in Johnsburg? See a lot of stars up there. Yeah. Haley Mosier, obviously, be a shooting star. Aim away from tobacco. Just shoot for your dreams. Stay away from that. It's not going to help you, right? Nice job, Haley. This is a repeat winner. Yep. Lillian San Antonio was here last year. You may remember her from last year as well. So she's back again. Nice job, Lillian. Obviously, the outdoors means a lot of north. We know that our tourist dollars and tourists love the outdoors, and so do our kids. So nice job, Lillian. You did a great job again this year. Now, come on. This one here, just the Einstein, I think, is what sold this one. Kensington Elementary is Natalie Zachar from grade 4. She was our overall 1st place winner. The Great Escape was gracious enough to donate 4 day passes as part of our prize package. And so she, on top of winning for her school, she also received that as our first place winner in the county. And again, you don't have to be a genius to know that tobacco is bad. Can't get any more simple than that. So nice job to Natalie. We all know that tobacco is expensive, not just in what it costs to buy it, but what it does for our health and our dollars for healthcare. So Carrie Lynn here from Lake George was able to put that in a very simple term. Stay healthy, be wealthy, stay tobacco free. It's a pretty simple message. Nice job. I like it. Come on up. Another Lake George student here, Alessandria Fasulo, grade 5. Tar the roads, not your lungs. Pretty simple. I do bring a big jar of tar. If anybody ever wants to see it, it's what a year's worth of tar looks like from the lungs of a tobacco user, and that usually makes a pretty good impression on the students about what's being put into their body when they smoke. So Alessandria was putting that into words here, so very nicely done. Let's see. We have Alexis Smith. Come along with me and choose to be tobacco-free. Pretty simple. Friendships are better without tobacco. Nicely done. They really like that simple poster. Good work. Come up. Alexis Millington from 5th grade. Don't let the leaves fall. Stay tobacco-free. One of the things we talk about, too, is that the litter produced, the pollution produced by discarded cigarette butts can actually harm our environment. They've been shown to be enough to basically, in a 10-gallon fish tank, kill everything. One cigarette butt has enough carcinogens and toxins to kill basically all the fish in a 10-gallon fish tank. So we mentioned that too about the environmental damage caused just from the litter of tobacco, and so obviously using that as part of the presentation, or poster, excuse me. All right, Queensberry. You guys have a fox on campus. Does that ever give you the idea? You guys have one. This is bee-free, smoke-free. Just a very nice poster, very simple. Allison Blydenberg did a great job. Come on up. Another one, Colin McKeel, grade 4. Light up your life, no smoking. You can see here that there's at least either Mario or one of those new video games out that my kids are into that I don't understand. And obviously using that to make their poster, very simple, very nicely done. I wasn't able to be here, but on this one. Angela Niken from St. Mary's. This was her. Have a heart. Your mouth isn't an ashtray. Pretty simple. They get it. That smoking doesn't make one attractive. It doesn't make them a better looking person, and that kind of sticks too. As much as we don't want to have a lot of vanity there. It's something that with teenagers, when they get there, it's something they will stick with them. And this was our 3rd place winner overall. She received a $25 gift card to Target on top of her prize for being the submission from St. Mary's and the winner from St. Mary's. She was unable to make it. She was also the winner last year as well. She did a great job. Haley Goodspeed from Warrensburg. Again, you can see we've made it to just about every school this year. We made it to every school, but not every school had a poster submitted. Stay tobacco free, snowboard away. Hey, it's tough to be an athlete or out there enjoying the weather when you can't breathe. So Haley, nicely done. That was a good poster for her. All right. And then we have Charlotte Misek from Warrensburg as well. Achieve your dreams, smoke free. It's tough to get to the top. Your health isn't as good as it needs to be, so nicely done there. And with that, I'm going to wrap things up by thanking again the Greatest Escape for the donation. Stewart Shops donates over $600 a year to us in gift cards, which the students from each school receive. A $10 for the winner, and the runner-up receives $5 plus those extra prizes. And again, I do want to make clear I really appreciate the Board of Supervisors and their efforts to at least keep funding on, whether they agree or not with every initiative. They see this as an important program, and they continue to allow us to go out and use this funding in a positive way to try to impact our health in a positive manner. So again, thank you to everybody. Thank you to all the students. Can you guys stand up? Let's give them all a nice hand. to the business part of your meeting now. So if you mind, when you'll wake back up where you came in, we'll go right back down to the meeting room, okay? Yeah, that's all.
Great program. I look forward to it every year. Congratulations to all the winners. We'll move on our agenda to the chairman's report. Very busy month since the last meeting. Committee meetings on the 21st, 22nd, 23rd. May 30th, I did stop in to say congratulations and good wishes to Yolanda Cummings. That they're going away party in the treasurer's office. On May 31st, attended additional committee meetings. Later in the day, I attended a SAFE meeting, Stop Aquatic Invasive meeting. On June 1st, attended a joint Warren County Finance College meeting. And then later at midday, I attended a senior citizen luncheon at the Holiday Inn for the awards ceremony for at the seniors luncheon. It was a wonderful affair. On June 4th, attended a workshop with Earl McCloskey, representing both EMS and of course our Warren County staff is working on the EMS plan, and what they're doing now is visiting with all the different EMS operations, going over their budgets, so we have a complete understanding of rescue squads in each of the municipalities, their budgets, and committing all of that into a spreadsheet so that as we compose this, we'll be able to put a financial plan together for any future proposals. On June 5th, I attended a meeting at the Fund for Lake George with representatives from Skaneateles Lake to discuss the harmful aquatic bloom program. There's quite a contingent that came in under this consolidated funding award round. There will be funding of $65 million available for Lake George under that program, and we were looking to coordinate with lakes like Skaneateles Lake regarding that, and to find out more about what their issues are and the kind of common issues that might exist between the two water bodies.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you say $65 million for just those 2 lakes?
12 lakes. 12 lakes.
12 lakes.
So 12 lakes.
That's still pretty fantastic.
We hope so. We'll see as we apply for the funding. Lake George doesn't have a harmful bloom yet. The only one of the 12 that does not. But they like what we're doing in Lake George, and there are things that we're doing that may be a model or may be useful in other watersheds. So, and that prompted the meeting with Skaneateles Lake, which is, of course, you know, is the reservoir for Syracuse and a wonderful water body. On June 7th, I met with Dave Wick and Walt Blender of the LGA to discuss the possible future grant applications under the Consolidated Funding Award program and what the priorities might be. And on the 12th, I attended the Lake George, Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board meeting. I'm happy to say that all 6 of our representatives, both voting members and non-voting members, ex officio members, were present, as well as 6 or 7 other supervisors. So it was a very well attended meeting by the Warren County Board of Supervisors. At that meeting, a new chair was selected for the regional board, Dave O'Brien from Washington County. They established a governance committee with a representative from each county to review and amend or change the bylaws, the operating bylaws, to be more up to date and in compliance with procedures and state laws. Our representative to that committee was Supervisor Stroud, and I thank him for offering his time and his services in that regard. And at that meeting also, they froze the loan program until they have had a chance to go through it all to make sure that the procedures that are in place are appropriate. And there's also a state controller audit that's going to be done here shortly, and I think that that's a prudent thing to do as well. And that concludes my report.
Report of committee chair people. Supervisor Dickinson.
No report.
Supervisor Stroud.
Yes, thank you. The Legislative Rules Committee met on May 31st, and we have 3 resolutions before you tonight. The first one, Resolution 243. There's a Camp Gabriel's correctional facility, or was a correctional facility, property located in the town of Brighton, Franklin County. And there is a move to put that into the category of Forever Wild. However, the 91.7 acres of Camp Gabriel's is already developed and has 55 buildings, roads, self-contained wastewater treatment plant, heating plant, wells, water distribution plant, backup generator, and much more. That this could be very developable as property, and to categorize it as Forever Wild is inconsistent. Supervisor Simpson and the Adirondack Association of Towns and Villages brought this to our attention. We think that throwing that into Forever Wild is inconsistent and contrary to the kind of economic development we want to see even in the park. So I would appreciate your support for Resolution 243. Resolution 244, Denise DeResta would like us to consider allowing a greater reimbursement from the state. It's very limited right now. And this is a resolution authorizing or requesting the state to increase the maximum reimbursement to $20,000. And Resolution 245. Plastic carry-out bags, single-use bags, has certainly been a big issue, and we know the environmental damage that it does. And Supervisor Bramer has been very aggressive in bringing this initiative to the forefront, and she has a proposal to put Warren County in the lead on this matter, but it still needed work. In the meantime, it was put forward at our Legislative and Rules Committee meeting that why don't we support Governor Cuomo's effort to do the same thing on a state level, because plastic bags have become a ubiquitous sight on the landscape and a detriment to the health of our communities and environment. And we think that the bill that he's proposing is a very good one, and it does have some appropriate prohibitions of plastic bags, and then prohibitions that do not apply. So reusable bags don't apply in most cases. That wrapping for uncooked meat, fish, and poultry does not apply. Packaged bulk items, sliced food items, newspaper, prepackaged items, trash bags. There's garment bags, restaurant bags, carry-out bags. There's a lot of exemptions that make the proposal by the governor very reasonable, and I think that one that we should support. So this resolution 245 is asking us to support the governor's resolution to limit the use of single-use plastic bags. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not chair a committee, and although I've been very busy, I have nothing of significance to report today.
Thank you. Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Shared Services did not meet, although I did meet with Julie Butler, our purchasing director, on numerous occasions. We're trying to get the fire districts in the county on board. And that's going to be a process because some qualify, some don't. But we think there's could be significant savings in consolidating purchases with the fire departments going through the county. So that's an objective that we have and we're working on currently. The other thing that I want to mention was the airport negotiating committee, which is Mr. Sokol, myself, and Mr. McDivitt. We met 3 times, and we're almost to the end of the road in what we will present to the facilities committee. That's been an interesting negotiating time frame, and more importantly, negotiating with the one participant was the only one participant who replied to the RFP was interesting. But we're prepared to go forward with that, Mr. Diamond, on the facilities committee next week to at least give you guys a preliminary of what we've concluded. And that is all I have, other than I do support that resolution 245 with the governor. I think 1.2 trillion bags in the oceans is a little excessive. And I think we need to start looking locally as well as statewide as well as federally to do our part. So I will support that today. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, I do not have a report since I do not have my own committee, but someday hopefully I will, but I was happened to be away at the other one, so I want to thank everybody for covering me while I was gone. So.
Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance first met on May 31st. Resolutions 228, 229, 257 through 261 are in your packet for consideration today. Finance actually had a very brief meeting on the 31st, but out of that came a couple of resolutions that I would like to just mention here. The first one being 257, which is establishing a capital project to promote the Floyd Bennett Memorial Airport. And this is a grant that is 100% funded through the New York State Department of Transportation for the purpose of marketing the property surrounding the airport. There was a question in regards to, do we need this because the EDC is handling this? But it's a little different than the EDC, where it's kind of like designated just strictly for surrounding the airport facility. So I look for your support on that one. And Resolution 260 is a roll call resolution, and this one is to authorize the funds from the occupancy tax to the Treasurer's Office. This hopefully Treasurer Swan will expound on a little bit more when he does his report. But the funds themselves will come out of the occupancy tax reserve. And Finance met again with personnel on June 1st, and we met at SUNY Adirondack. And it's funny, I've been a resident now for 40 years in Queensbury, and when I was in high school, it was considered Bay Road Tech, and which was another grade beyond Queensbury. Then it became regarded as ACC, and now it's SUNY Adirondack. And we've seen the wonderful things that have happened at that campus, and under the direction of President Duffy and her team, it was really, really nice to be in that new building. You were there, Chairman, and a few other supervisors as well from both committees. But out of that Resolution 261 is basically to approve the tentative budget, so that way they can have a public hearing on it. But this Northwest Bay Conference Center, where we had the meeting in the Readiness Center, is also a multi-purpose room. So the room can accommodate 4 different parties. It can be split in half and then in quarters as well. So their idea to kind of generate more revenue is to have weddings or have corporations sign up for different events there. So I think they're doing a fantastic job, and it's just really nice to see how it's developed since I've lived here. But, with that, I would like to bring up Treasurer Swan, please.
Without objection. Mike?
Good morning, everybody. Just a couple of quick things, and then we'll get into the new position I'm asking about in the treasurer's office. First of all, we did close the books on time. All the proper paperwork was filed with the state, and we ended up with approximately $19 million in surplus, which is very nice. It's always nice to have a big savings account. The other thing is that we have worked with a couple of local banks to do some to purchase some certificates of deposit. We're taking money out of some of the reserve funds that aren't used on a regular basis, rather than just letting that money sit there. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but we're getting a little over 2%, which is better than nothing. So over the course of the year, that will help us with some additional monies to the kiddies. The position that I'm talking about and went through personnel and finance is called, the title is accounting technician. And we went through civil service with this to come up with the right grade, the right requirements and so forth, and it pays $46,318. The position itself is going to be split, but the majority of the work will be for occupancy tax. And I don't know if some of the new people are aware, but a couple of years ago, the state auditors came in and criticized my office and me for not having a proper enforcement policy and for not doing enough audits on the local hotels, motels, and so forth. So we've been trying for 2 years to do those audits. We've got 2 done in 2 years. We should be doing 20 a year. My staff just does not have the time to do the job properly. And I feel that if we do get these audits going, it will help and generate some funds. I'm not trying to say that people are cheating out there, but it's a good idea to keep track of what's going on. And that was when I brought that up, the source of funding was recommended to be the occupancy tax fund to take care of that. And on a side note, we just have started, well, actually last week had a meeting with county attorney staff to start a real good, what I consider, enforcement policy and plan to move forward on the people that are not paying, which unfortunately is getting larger and larger. I can't comment on that, but that's where we're at with that. And the other part of this job will be handling health insurance. Since we've gone to self-insurance, we have had, the workload has increased. And in one of the audits of what we have to do because the county has to pay per person that's in the insurance, we're trying to make sure that we actually get a good solid count every month. So that way we're not losing money or people aren't being missed. But there's also, with the self-insurance, there's also a little bit more work that needs to be done in our office. So that's where this position needs to come from. Questions?
You mentioned that the county closing the books this year, you hit surplus $10 million.
Correct.
That automatically goes to fund balance, correct?
Yes.
And what does that put your fund balance total at your date?
That's $19 million. Yeah, that's as of December 31st, 2017. That as of December 31st, 2017.
You might want to put the word unobligated.
It's unobligated, yes. This is unobligated funds. Yeah.
Now, during the calendar year, there was projections made on the revenue side. Did you exceed those? Did you hit those, or were you under revenue?
For 2017, we actually, well, there was a combination of things. The departments normally, due to their due diligence, don't spend all the money that's budgeted. So there's a surplus that comes out of that. That's approximately $1 million. And yes, our revenues did exceed what was budgeted.
Any other questions for the treasurer?
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Beatty.
Thank you. When can we see the 5-year plan? Last year we got the 5-year plan, and I'm not sure that's your area, Mike, on November, the day of the budget vote. I'd like to see it earlier this year, the 5-year plan, so I'm just wondering when we can see at least preliminary numbers or a draft.
Supervisor Thomas, would you like to respond?
What you just stated is incorrect. It was presented to the Budget Committee on August 15th of 2017.
So it was presented a month and a half early. Can we get it even earlier?
No, 3
Can we,
weeks.
can we get it even earlier than that, Frank? Just asking.
It was August 15th, because you've made this statement like 3 times now, to me.
Well, I sent you an email. You never replied, so I don't know.
Right.
And you don't fill me in, so you're replying now. Thank you.
I reply.
Can I just one quick? That is not a function of my office, so I can't tell you when or how that will be done. We work with the administrator's office to get that done, but that's not one of our functions.
We should state for the record, Mike, that also you do a wonderful job administering that program, and you only ever take but a fraction of what the upper limit of what you're authorized to take.
What's that with the
on the ACT tax?
Oh, on the well, most counties in the state take 10% as an administrative fee that goes to the assessor or to the treasurer's office. We take 3%.
Right. That's my point. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that you're doing a very efficient job.
Thank you.
Is that the same now with this new person? Roughly 3%?
It would still have to be 3% unless this board changes that percentage. That's the only way that can be changed. That's nothing I have control over. And I think that that's something that we would want to address next year and see how it's going.
I think, Supervisor Bramer, I think the thinking at the committee was that if the revenue increases as a result of the enforcement, then the total dollars increase. But we don't know until we have that experience. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. How soon will we have the results from America?
You mean as far as OCTAX? Probably, and realistically, probably not till about the end of August, first part of September. That's how long it takes for it to all cycle through.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Just one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the honor and privilege of working with this woman for many years, and she's helped me tremendously with anything that's happened with finance, giving me numbers every day before the meeting, and hate to say goodbye, but we wish her all the luck in the world. Julianne McKinstry this is her last official meeting, so she's a busybody, and I'm sure she'll have no problem keeping busy. But thank you for everything.
Supervisor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to briefly mention the sales tax, the latest report from Mr. Lynch. The sales tax was up 2.9%, which is just over $500,000. I know it's slightly short of halfway through the year, but let's hope that continues. That's the highest it's been in years. Other than that, I don't have anything else to really report. That wasn't covered with the treasurer, and I too would like to thank Joanne McKinstry for her help on the budgets that I've prepared since I've been budget officer. Couldn't do it without her, and all the best in your retirement.
Supervisor Hyde, good to see you.
Thank you. No report.
No report. Supervisor Garrity.
Yes, personnel and higher education met twice. There's eight resolutions in your packet, and I too would like to offer best wishes to Joanne. I worked with her as budget officer for 5 years, and then as chairman for 4 years, administrator. So we go way back, and I'm sure she's going to enjoy her horses, and if anybody has extra bale of hay, make sure she gets one because she's going to be retired. But congratulations, Joanne. She's done a remarkable job here. That's it.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's 3 in front of you from criminal justice and public safety. They have to do with authorizing agreements. One of them, number 233, will be amended. We did not have complete information during committee. We'll bring that up a little bit later in the meeting.
All right. Supervisor Diamond.
No report.
Supervisor Brandon.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of comments because I do not chair any committees, but on 245, I do support the governor's program bill to reduce the use of single-use plastic bags. So I will be supporting that, and I hope that others as well do as well. And I am continuing to work with our county administrator and others to finalize the language so that we can come up with something from the county that everyone hopefully will be able to support. And along the lines of reducing the use of single-use plastic, you'll see today, as courtesy of Mayor Hall, that you all have Just Water beverage containers on your desks. These are made out of paper that is manufactured in the facility in Glens Falls, and we're using water from the town of Queensbury, so it's a really good partnership. And all of those dollars are getting poured back into the city of Glens Falls. So we really ask you to support our local county businesses, including Just Water. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Lowe.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to make a comment. I'm just a little critical of Mayor Hall. I mean, Just Water? Joanne is going to be doing more than horses. She's an avid ballroom dancer, and I know she's excited about having more time to do that. Support committee met last month, and we have well, there's actually 3 resolutions, but one of them deals with the updated purchasing policy, which Supervisor Beatty was referencing, and that's we are holding out a blank check to so many of the units within Warren County, no strings attached. And Julie Butler, the purchasing department, is making great efforts to get these units on board because as a county, it will save us all money, and that's under the shared services. The other thing which actually I would encourage Supervisor Beatty to take advantage of and credit his committee is IT has proposed, and it's a resolution that we offer the other municipalities in Warren County an opportunity to utilize the antivirus account, which is currently administered by Warren County, and this should be a significant savings. And Supervisor Beatty, I hope you take credit for that because it's going to be certainly a huge savings under shared services.
All I know
don't lose sight of it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I know we helped Glens Falls with Mike Colvin going over there when they had some challenges with their IT, and he did a phenomenal job. So.
But it will. I mean, at the end of the year, we may have forgotten this meeting, but don't because
remind me, please.
It's going to be I think it'll be a big number in addition to your other number. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll.
No report, Mr. Chairman, but I did participate in a webinar hosted by NISAC on single-use plastic bags this past Tuesday. I'm hoping that NISAC posts a link so that individuals who are interested, who weren't able to participate in that webinar, can go on to it. Obviously, information and education helps us all make decisions down the road. Thank you.
You're welcome. Supervisor Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Health, Human, and Social Services met on May the 23rd, and as a result of those groups that came before Social Service, Public Health, and Employment and Training, we have 8 resolutions. We have 235 through 242. One is like appointing positions. 236 is authorizing an agreement with the various counties as far as BOCES. 237 offering extension agreement with the Council for Prevention of Alcohol and Substance Abuse. 238 authorizing an agreement with Mahoney Notified Plus to take care of the fire alarm and security system at Countryside. 239 is authorizing an agreement with Jennifer Lenahan, a dietitian, for dietary consultant services. 240 is authorizing an agreement with the New York State Department of Health and Health Research Institute for Public Health Emergency Preparedness. 241 deals with changes in the corporate compliance officer information, and 242 is adopting the Warren County corporate compliance policy to approve the amendments. And I just want to say, I attended a symposium that was held at the Georgian. It was on the sexual exploitation of children, and I will tell you it was quite quite a day. Some of the information that you found out and what happens with young children and even in our own communities that we are totally aware of, it was definitely an eye-opener, and it was well worth it. It was 10 to 4, but it was a wonderful program. Thank you.
You're welcome. Supervisor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. DPW met on May 21st, and we had a report from Justin Gagno on the progress of their departure from the railroad and ceasing of their operations. And that led us into a lengthy discussion about, securing the safety of the corridor and crossing signals and all sorts of issues that need to be attended to without an operator on the rail. We also had a report from Mr. Benway on the hatchery stocking this year, the trout stocking. They stocked 23,670 brook and rainbow trout throughout the county, and so all the fishermen should be delighted with their work. The Spring Zing event was successful. They had a total of 301 visitors, and that was okay. Another thing we talked about, I skipped over something on the railroad. We had talked about the snowmobile use of the corridor, which we're continuing to work through this year. We want to make sure we can have that opportunity this year. And that was it with that meeting. And before I go on to the rest of my report, on your desk, there was a resolution here. Proposed floor resolution number 2, terminating agreement with Saratoga North Creek Railroad as a railroad operator. And that is in response to we've had a couple letters that have gone out from our attorney's office notifying the railroad on January 19th of deficiencies in the contract, and again on January 26th. And we had asked for a plan to cure or remedy these defaults, and to this date there hasn't been a cure or remedy. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if do I do anything now on?
No, just for guidance. That will be brought to the floor on the resolutions. I'll be looking to you and Supervisor Bramer for a motion and a second to bring that, make that part of our agenda.
Okay. So further along in my report, on the 21st, the IDA met, and we accepted a new project. Actually, the public hearing is going to be tomorrow morning or Monday morning at the Town of Queensbury Supervisors Room. It's FireTech LLC. That's at 10 a.m. and anybody's welcome to attend that. We talked about a new marketing representative for the industrial park lots. We're expected to ratify a resolution Monday night with Jack Kelly from Caldwell Banker to market and also help us sell these lots and move them. We've actually had quite a bit of interest in the last few weeks. We also have a new CEO. It's Al Nolet, who is the Washington County Treasurer. He attended a meeting we had this past week on Wednesday, and so we're happy to have him on board overseeing our financial. We also were having a general review by the authority's budget office. That's commenced. We met with them also Wednesday, and they've started their process. There's interest in expansion of an existing project, Equistock, which used to be the RWS company down there, the Royal Wood Shavings. They're interested in 3 lots over there, so they've got a plan. And we want to welcome Nick Camano after hopefully everybody supports the resolution that's on the floor today as a new board member. We still have 1 spot open on the Warren County side, so if you know of anybody, we're interested. Also on the 21st, we had the Cornell Cooperative Extension meeting, and the committee met, and we had a presentation from Amy Sabatis on the VITA program, which was very well utilized this year. A lot of people. They saved the taxpayers a ton of money. People that qualify for this. The greenhouse construction is commenced. It's actually up, and we're going to get a tour of that this upcoming meeting. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Also, the CCE Warren County was nominated as ARCC, or nominated as an RACC 2018 Nonprofit Business of the Year. Not sure of the result of that. When is that? Okay.
The Rural Community Center actually got the full
Yeah, so we want to congratulate them on that. And then finally, they were awarded the 2018 Dorothea Dix Community Service Award. It's a pleasure to serve on that committee. And thank Dr. Seeley and all of his colleagues for all their hard work throughout the community. Oh, this is very interesting. Every year, the Cornell Cooperative Extension, they have a camper ship at Sky Farm. And this year they had funding for 80 people, and they had 180 applicants. A private, generous person came in and picked up the extras, and now all 180 campers are going to have this camper ship. That's just an amazing thing. So that's a testament to how far-reaching this organization is. So, thank you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a tough act to follow. Can we go the other way sometime? I have no committees, so I have no report, but I would like to comment on a proposed resolution. Is this the appropriate time?
Briefly, sure. Go ahead. Since you didn't deliver a report, go right ahead.
I'll be quicker than him.
Oh.
On 245, I will proudly support that today. However, I would like to encourage Supervisor Brammer and Supervisor Nicholson to continue to pursue local legislation, and let me briefly explain why. I am not a fan of patchwork legislation, and I see what's coming from the governor's office, and like I said, I support it. But when I leave this building, when we leave this building, and we go out there and we tout the beauty of this park that some of us live in, that we all depend on, I think it's really important for us to lead, to have examples of how we have led in our protection of the environment, street cred, if you will. So that's why I'm going to encourage them. Thank you.
Thank you. You're part of the county administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As has already been mentioned, next Friday, June 22nd, is Joanne McKinstry's last day officially in her full-time position. I also did want to acknowledge the fact that Joanne had a significant milestone this month. On June 1st, 2 Fridays ago, she celebrated 30 years of employment with Warren County. And I think that very much reflects her dedication to all of the board members, all of the residents, all of the employees of Warren County. And I just want to say one thing about Joanne. I've only known her and worked with her for 2.5 months, but those months have demonstrated to me so clearly what a tremendous asset she has been to this government, and I really hate to lose her. But the good news for me, and in further demonstration of Joanne's generosity and her dedication to this county, she has agreed, if the board is willing to approve, to come back and work with us for 2 days a week to help train her successor. And I'm very hopeful that we will have your support to do that. And I thank Joanne for being willing to offer that, because I know she has a lot of personal priorities, as we all do. And Joanne, I just want to, on behalf of the board and the county workforce as a whole, to thank you for all that you've done. We sincerely appreciate your hard work and dedication, and we wish you all the best in your retirement. Congratulations. Moving on to some of the meetings that I've attended outside of the county. I did attend on Friday, June 1st, the budget presentation at SUNY Adirondack. I had also had a prior meeting with the president as well as her financial person to discuss what they were going to roll out. It's very simply, there's the state aid only increased $69,000 from last year to this year. which really is a drop in the bucket for them. The proposal for the host counties, Warren and Washington, is a little bit under $69,000. $39,000 of that would be us. The bulk of the increase comes from the students. It's a proposed 4% tuition increase. The college, I was pleased to see from the presentation, is making investments in its future. They're doing strategic planning, and this is important from the perspective of ensuring healthy enrollment, particularly the enrollment that we get from other counties, from Saratoga County, for instance, because that enrollment is directly tied to the aid that SUNY Adirondack is able to get for their capital projects, which does take some pressure off of the host communities. So I was pleased with the presentation, and that resolution is up on the agenda today. On Friday, June 8th, last Friday, I met with Susan Savage from the Department of State. We touched base on the county's work to date on shared services and where we intend to go from here. It was a helpful meeting. She had some good ideas. I shared some of the ideas that we've been working on so far. And I just wanted to update you briefly on my efforts. The county administrator serves by statute as the chair of this panel. I've been putting together the mandated reporting instrument that we have to use. The state requires a lot of financial calculations. They require the information to be displayed in a certain way. So my staff and I are working on that. Lexi DeLury has been very, very helpful in that process in terms of gathering tax levy information. So I would like to thank her and her staff for helping us out. We've been meeting also with department heads to vet some of the ideas that have come through both the Shared Services Committee and have been part of the discussions in the Shared Services panel, and that have been sent back to the county administrator's office from various heads of local governments. So we're vetting those ideas, trying to come up with what makes the most sense to include as part of the final Shared Services proposal. I'll be meeting with Supervisor Beatty as well, as chair of the Shared Services Committee, to go through those ideas with him. It's my intention at this point to have one more meeting of the panel prior to the final meeting to vote on this plan. We have to have that all completed by September 15th. And I did want to mention the state has very specific requirements about, for each initiative that we come up with, we have to list all of the participants who want to be part of it. And we also have to have savings scored. We have to present how much all of the municipalities or the school districts or whoever these participants are expect to save. Now we have to, it's sort of a put our best foot forward effort. Nobody's going to hold us to those numbers, but it is going to be a very intensive process, a lot of administrative work on that. So for those supervisors that do serve as the executive of their towns, I did want to emphasize that. And to that end, as we firm up what we believe are good proposals that will go on this shared services plan, I will do my very best to keep you all posted, to send you some preliminary questions that will allow the county to help the towns cost out these proposals and come up with a savings number. Last night we have three, I think, pretty good proposals together for information technology. And those of you who do run towns should have received that information. Anybody else who's interested, please let me know. I can share it with you what we think those initiatives might be. But we're really just basically trying to get all of our ducks in a row and try to get a jump on this. So because September 15th is going to come quickly, and there's a lot of work to do from now until then. Chairman Conover mentioned the June 12th meeting of the Regional Planning Board. I just wanted to add that Doug Lehman was there, wrote a very good story about it. But due to the efforts of the 5 counties to get information from the Regional Planning Board and to really reconstitute this board, there was a lot of work that was put into that, making sure that all of the counties were properly appointing all of their representatives. As a result of that, we really were able to take control of this meeting. Right off the bat, there was an issue with approving the minutes of the prior meeting, and it was made very clear that we were keeping track of who by state law is able to vote on this board and who is not. We had roll call votes for everything that we did, all in accordance with state law. And it was refreshing to see that operation being conducted that way. There was some order where we sense in the past there may have been disorder and a lack of attention to the details. Chairman Conover mentioned that the new chair of this organization is Dave O'Brien, the supervisor of Hampton. We think he'll do a great job. He's been very engaged in this whole process from the beginning. And I did really just want to highlight the efforts of this board. This board of supervisors has really been instrumental in getting this change underway. Chairman Conover was modest, but it was the chairman who proposed the motion to establish a governance committee to go through these bylaws and to go through these loan procedures and to fix the problems. It was also Chairman Conover who proposed the motion to freeze the loan program. So, two of the most important things to come out of that meeting. And there are many other supervisors around this room today that have been very active. We were the only county to send all 6 of our representatives, to send 6 representatives to this meeting. We had another additional half a dozen, Supervisor McDevitt, Supervisor Bramer, Supervisor Simpson, Supervisor Hogan, Supervisor Wild, Supervisor Beatty. You were all there, all participating. And Supervisor McDevitt in bringing this, taking an active leadership role and bringing the Regional Planning Board into his Economic Development Committee meetings and allowing all of you supervisors, Supervisor Beatty, Supervisor Bramer, Supervisor Wild, so many of the others who have had very good questions for the Loan Committee and for Mr. Young. The point of me going through this is just to highlight that the Warren County Board of Supervisors has been very, very active in trying to address this issue, trying to reform this board, trying to make sure that in the future that this board is serving the residents of the 5 counties the way it's supposed to. Supervisor Stroud, thank you for serving on the governance committee. And it's going to take some time. There's some very foundational issues that need to be repaired. But we will work methodically through it, and we will get it done, and it will result in a better organization. So thank you all. Very brief update on 2 items from the Legislative and Rules Committee. As of this morning, the bill to help veterans get some more state aid passed the state Senate on Wednesday. Was delivered to the Assembly, has not yet moved in the Assembly. But we can be optimistic, and I'll continue to track the progress of that legislation. The governor's program bill has been in the Senate Rules Committee since April 24th. No motion that I've been able to see since then, but again, I'll continue to track that bill. The session continues into next week, the 18th, 19th, and 20th, so stay tuned, and I'll keep you all posted on the progress of that legislation. And finally, there are 3 resolutions today that we will be requesting to amend from the floor. You should have copies of the proposed amendments on your desk. They're resolutions 231, 233, and 236. And I want to briefly explain the requested amendments to each resolution and then respectfully request that the chairman call for the appropriate motions and discussions to make those amendments. Resolution 231 would be amended to increase the reimbursement rate paid to Warren County for police services at the Great Escape from the initial $56.50 per hour to $57 per hour. And this is a technical correction to ensure that the county's costs are fully covered. And the need for this correction was discovered after the criminal justice meeting advanced the resolution, so that's why the amendment comes to the floor today. Resolution 233 would be amended to clarify the payment terms for the contract extension that's proposed for the SPCA. Although the Criminal Justice Committee discussed and approved extending this contract to July 20th, which is the next board meeting date, there was no discussion on what would be an appropriate fee for that 20-day extension. So Chairman Leggett has since proposed prorating the fee per diem based on the vendor's current contract, and therefore we would propose amending this resolution by adding an additional resolved paragraph, which is the second such paragraph on the amended resolution. Which I believe is in front of you at the moment. and you can see what that exact text is. Resolution 236 is the final resolution that would be amended, and it would increase the dollar amount of this contract, which is from the Employment and Training Department, of BOCES contract. It would increase the dollar amount of the contract from $13,700 to $14,512. And this is simply due to an oversight by the department when they submitted their request to the Health, Human, and Social Services Committee. This contract is 100% funded by Federal Workforce Investment Act funds that are earmarked for the Summer Youth Employment Program, and the proposed $812 increase is available within those funds. Department Head Chris Hunsinger is here if anybody has questions about this change. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Relative to the three amendments, Supervisor Leggett.
I'd like to bring resolution number 231 as amended to be considered.
You want to take these one at a time?
Yes.
Okay. Chairman Leggett has proposed the amendment on resolution 231. Is there a second to that? Supervisor Thomas on the second. Any further discussion? Are we ready for the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next one is resolution number 233 to include the amount. As you'll see in the second resolved paragraph there, it's to be prorated. It comes out on a daily basis of $274 a day for the services of the SPCA. You remember from a previous meeting with the auditor for the county when we were able to get itemized voucher from the SPCA. Their billing rate is about $200 an hour for their services. You also look at what we're charging Great Escape for the Sheriff Patrol, $7 an hour. There's a big change there. But this was passed out of by a majority vote in committee. I propose this amendment to come to the floor.
We have a motion to amend the resolution to include what the fee would be. Do we have a second to that? Mr. Sokol on the second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Chairman, can we make that a roll call
On
233 for when it's time to vote?
233, yes, I'll be calling for roll calls, but we can do that right now. There will be a roll call on 233. And do we have one other? 236. What's that? Right, we also have an amendment on the employment and training.
And I'd like to make that motion to make the amendment to that one, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Ms. Frazier, to amend 236. Do we have a second? Supervisor Wild on the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you all. Report of the county attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have nothing to report.
No report. Reading of communication.
We have the report of criminal and family workloads for April 2018 from the Warren County Probation Department. Minutes from the May 16, 2018 meetings of the Warren and Washington County CDC Executive Committee and the IDA's Executive Park Committee. Letter from the Lake George Park Commission thanking the Board of Supervisors for the generous contribution of $100,000 towards the funding of the mandatory Lake George Boat Inspection Program. Notice of public hearing from Fitzgerald Morris Baker Firth announcing that Warren and Washington County IDA will hold a public hearing on June 18th at 10 a.m. in the Supervisors Conference Room at the Queensbury Town Office Building, in connection with the FireTech Sprinkler Systems LLC project. Resolution number 147 of 2018 from the Washington County Board of Supervisors appointing representatives to the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board, and April payment in the amount of $3,584 from the Capital District Regional Off-Track Bidding Board.
Thank you. Reading of resolutions.
Proposed resolution numbers 228 through 261 were mailed. No corrections other than the ones you just took care of were made after mailing. There are no additional numbered resolutions that were produced.
There are 2 floor resolutions on your desks. The first one is that's concerning the standard workday reporting. That's produced by my office, and that one was to take care of updating the reporting information for those participating in the New York State Retirement Program. Motion is needed to bring that to the floor.
We need a motion to bring that floor. Mr. Garrity on the motion, Mr. Driscoll on the second. Any discussion? All those in favor of bringing it to the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
That resolution, floor resolution number 1, will now be resolution number 262. And there is a second floor resolution. That one's terminating the agreement with Saratoga and North Creek Railroad LLC as the railroad operator. The motion is needed to bring that resolution to the floor.
We need a motion to bring that to the floor. Mr. Simpson on the motion, Ms. Bramer on the second. I'm sure we'll be discussing this going forward. All those in favor of the motion to bring this to the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Proposed floor resolution number 2 will now be resolution number 263.
263. Is that it? All righty. Now I'll open it up to the audience. Anyone wishing to address any of the resolutions presently before the board? There being no one, I'll now ask for requests for roll call votes. Mr. Straugh, Supervisor Straugh.
May I have a roll call vote on 261? I need to recuse myself because I'm on the Board of Trustees, and the rules and regulations regarding independency of the college and this institution are very clear.
Roll call on 261. Any other requests for roll call? Mr. Thomas, Supervisor Thomas.
I'd like a roll call on 245. While I don't necessarily oppose the objective of the proposed legislation, I believe a more comprehensive approach needs to be taken. If anybody travels our highways on a regular basis and looks at the bottles and cans and just plain garbage along our roads, all over, everywhere, I think that maybe a more comprehensive approach of increasing the fines for littering drastically and trying to enforce it and stop it. And also an education campaign to educate people that, don't open your window on your car and toss the stuff else out the window. I just, I guess maybe we've all done that at one time or another, but, think about it, it just doesn't make any sense. Keep it in your car, take it home, put it in the garbage can, So, for that reason, I'm going to vote no, because I feel this is a patchwork type thing, and if we start banning things, do we want to ban bottles? Do we want to ban cans, paper cups? Where's it stop? So I think an education campaign and drastically increasing the fines for littering would be a much better approach.
All right, let me finish the roll call and then we'll come right back to 245. Any other roll call requests? There being none, further discussion on 245? Mr. Loeb, Supervisor
Thank you,
Loeb.
Mr. Chairman. I will support 245, but I wholeheartedly agree also with Supervisor Thomas. Education, if you look at the littering that occurred 40 years ago when the education process began, not littering, the littering is a lot less than it was. Although I find it's a curious anecdote that if I see, there's litter, what am I going to put it in? I feel confident I can always find a bag, which is, I never realized until this day that if I'm walking around, if I have to pick something up, there's always a bag someplace for me to put that trash in. So I agree with you, Supervisor Thomas, that even if we pass this, we should take steps to increase our education. That would be very beneficial. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further discussion on 245? Mr. McGowan, Supervisor McGowan.
I do have a strong feeling. I support all of what you say, and Claudia is taking the lead, since we do have such a beautiful area that we live in, is to really take a stronghold of pushing New York State to go the step further. There's so many times that I am behind a garbage truck, and yes, those light bags you see blowing out, and that's all I see. And I wish I had more time to stop and pick everything up. It is, quite bothersome to litter. And I have had many friends over the time of working, and they open up the window and throw something out the window, and I'd be the first one to lock it up, even going down the Northway and making them go back and pick it up. And people thought I was crazy, but I said, we got to start somewhere, and this is where we all have to start. So.
Any further discussion on 245?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Leggett, of course.
Thank you. I also attended a webinar. Do you attend webinars? About the plastic bags in New York State that was put on by Steve Querio and NISAC, and it was very informative on the subject. And if there's any way for people to listen in on it after the fact, I advise it.
Supervisor Brammer.
Thanks. I also attended some of the webinar, and one of the things that they discussed was Erie County's efforts. They have taken a lot of time and money to put into an educational program, so that's something that we could certainly do as well. I do think that we should be banning single-use plastic bags because they are lightweight, they're flying all around, and it's not just the litter aspect, but it's also the fact that these are coming from a non-renewable resource. Plastic is typically made from an oil-based product, and we're using it for 10 minutes and then throwing away. Maybe we're recycling it sometimes, but if we can start using something else like a biodegradable, or a plant-based, paper-based type of product, I think we're doing the environment a service, especially here where it is so important to all of us.
Any further discussion on 245? Then I'll close discussion on 245. Discussion on other resolutions. Supervisor Diamond.
We would like to pull 234 discussion along with that, and also discuss 261. My questions on 234, we're talking about submitting and consolidating funding applications. Looking at the language of the resolution, talks about various projects and the responsibility for the community that's going to be their share. It doesn't specifically say in the resolution what that is. Because, and maybe this is better off as the county administrator, what various projects are we looking to apply for? What communities are they in, and what would be the share obligation to those communities if it's accepted and approved through funding process?
The answer is Wayne Lamoth, who I don't believe is here today, had asked for this resolution to cover any projects that may be determined would be good projects to apply to the state for these funds. I can read you his memo. It said that his department wishes to maintain an option to submit for projects that may be eligible and meet funding thresholds, and that projects would be selected from the current First Wilderness Plan that can demonstrate readiness and matching funds that are in place or committed already, and that other applications would be prepared for projects or programs at the direction of the chairman of the board.
So this resolution is asking us this board to adopt or approve, but we don't have any detail project development that we're going to submit. What we can do is approval, we don't know what the projects are. What is, again, the lion's share of communities projects are going to submit as not we really have money appropriated for those
Those are good questions, Jack. I think just for the discussion purposes on this, I believe the application deadline on this is the latter part of July. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that's no. I know that.
I'd like to know what waterfront project or next community development project we're doing. Generalized county that
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe I can help with that. That resolution number 234 is basically authorizing the department to apply for, just as in our towns that we passed a resolution authorizing the application for this grant. The town of Chester is along the Hudson, so it's applicable for the local waterfront. And we are in discussion about what those projects are. It is based on past studies that have been prepared that have identified particular projects. So it would fall into that. So for that to happen, the towns need to sign off that they would have the match money. Let's say it's an 80-20 match, 20%, some are 60-40, depending on who you're going through on.
Do we know what specifically the match is? What other towns or villages the city involved? I'm not sure whether the city put a resolution forward. Again, you mentioned your community approved this format. You, as every other community in Warren County, also adopted that match all of the
LWRP 7525. Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks. There is a whole ton, there's a whole ton of things on the list, right? So I think we should have Mr. Lamont come back and tell us what are the ones that he's focusing on trying to apply for this year. Because how are we gonna get anything done if we, the board, don't even know that we're focusing on it? You know, we should, and the town should know, yeah. I think we should prioritize which ones we're asking for.
I think that's the thinking. Normally, the process, as you know, is that there's a number of decision-making points along the path here. This did come through committee, so I think the thinking was to put ourselves in a position to be able to apply. Just because you receive an award, if for whatever reason the municipality is unable or unwilling to put up the local match, you don't need to accept that award. That becomes an issue. But I think the idea of having the grant writer come to committee and explain to the committee what we're applying for and where the local match is coming from is absolutely required
We'll
here.
lose out on an opportunity if we apply for something and then it turns out, oh, the community didn't want to do that anyway.
It's a
And
missed
especially now
opportunity.
with our proposed resolution
Right.
or whatever it is about the railroad court.
I think this is these are all legitimate questions. Supervisor Simpson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm working with the planning department on a piece for Horican Chester. It's in the Schroon Lake water basin, and ultimately we will have a resolution approving that, committing funds based on the plan that we're developing right now. But we're going to have another board meeting next month before the deadline to have the application in. So I think this is to authorize them to continue on their path, and the towns that are working with him are going to know the details, and I think that we can get that. And then there's an ultimate approval that we could do at the next board.
Is that a motion to table?
No, I'm saying that I think that we need to give him affirmation. We want him to continue to
You
work
want him
on
to
these.
continue. I see.
And at the next board meeting, we can have another resolution approving those plans.
Supervisor Garrity.
Just to put some context in how this works, Wayne reaches out to all the communities and says, are you interested in applying for grants? And we bring them certain things. I don't think I've ever seen him go for a grant that the community didn't agree to do or be able to put up the funding for it. So I think we should let them move ahead with this, and if you want a list of the ones they come final on, that's fine. But I don't think you want to hold up this resolution because he's not going to apply for a grant for a community. He doesn't agree they want to do it. If there's a process, and just because the list is not here, he talks to all of us, and then he starts work. It is complicated, and the time frame is the end of July. And I just think we should let this go on, and the administrator can ask Wayne to formulate a list and can email it out to everybody to make them feel comfortable with it. But I've never known Wayne to apply for a grant for a community that says, I don't want it.
I'm not asking you to waive.
And I think we can get that for you probably next week or, you know.
The point is that Wayne reach out to Mayor Paul, invite him to the workshop, include him in this process, talking about the city wants to do I spoke with him about it. I'm not sure if he has the opportunity to voice his thoughts on the project.
Thank you, Jack. I think that's, will you set aside your initial request to table this? Would
I
you?
didn't ask you.
I thought you said pull. I thought you said,
Well, I meant, I pulled it because I used that term
Okay.
to have a discussion.
all right, very good. Very good. Very good. And that message will be delivered to Wayne, emphasis added.
Now, the next one.
Oh, wait, before we go.
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Jack, before we go further, is there any further discussion on Resolution 234? Supervisor Hogan.
They are good questions and appropriate to ask. We are a community that is in this process, and decisions have to be made at the local level before they can be brought. I would urge you not to do anything that would delay this process. This isn't a commitment on the county's part other than to support the writing of these grants. I'd be happy to detail them with anybody what we're working on, but it has to go through our board. We provide a resolution that Wayne includes in the application. So the commitment is well known to the community. But I will assure you that the projects, at least for the town of Dunkirk, are essential. These are really important to us, so please don't throw a holder in.
Supervisor Wild.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sure Supervisor Diamond had some great points. I'd like to request that the microphone move closer, or he move closer to the microphone, because I really had a difficult time hearing him. Hopefully, it's not a sign of my age, but I just had a difficult time.
I'll try to do my best.
Alrighty. Alrighty. Further discussion on 234? Supervisor Thomas.
Yes, I know a lot of communities make use of this. I can speak for Stony Creek. Over the last 10 years, we've received 5 grants. They were 50-50 matches, except for one. And currently, we'll be applying for a small grant to study our hamlet for possible water and sewer.
Alrighty. Then I'll close discussion on 234. A discussion on other resolutions. 261. Jack, the floor is yours. Mhm.
Reading the resolution in front of us today, under the second resolve, it says we're asking the board today to tentatively approve the budget that has been drafted by Adirondack Community College. Fortunately, I looked at their presentation, and I was hoping that a copy of that budget would have been in my packet today. I could review that. It isn't. The question I have is the process. I'm not opposed to helping out Adirondack Community College by any means. I want to record stating that. But what it, in regards to transparency, doesn't it make sense to have a public hearing in advance of calling for a tentative vote on a budget? I know the process of Glens Falls that we followed during budget workshops and adoption of the general fund budget. We always permitted the public to speak to the budget before there was an adoption. In this particular case, we're asking the supervisors to either support or vote against a budget without the public's input. I prefer having a copy of the budget if I could have reviewed it in advance of tentative vote today. Is it then, is the process then, after we have a public hearing, once again, we would vote on
Yes.
the budget again?
Yes. Yes.
What
Yes.
serves the purpose of having a tentative vote today before we have a public hearing?
I believe the process, and the attorney can speak to this, I believe the process is spelled out in municipal law. I believe there has to be a, I don't know if they call it a preliminary or a tentative budget, and it's that you hold a public hearing on. And then, and then the outgrowth of that might be some changes to that tentative preliminary, which becomes a final, and it's the final that you vote on.
Well, why would you ask for someone to take a position tentatively prior to the final vote? It would make sense to me, and this is just my thought, that we have host a public hearing and then conduct the vote. That's where I'm getting confused. It seems like, as it's been said before, we are putting the part before the board, we're asking people to vote without public input, and then we're gonna vote again on the same proposal.
Yeah. I can only tell you in terms of general municipal law, Mr. Garrity.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that. All we're doing is giving permission for them to move their budget ahead, which we had a joint budget meeting with Washington County, Personnel Finance. We met at the college. We all were given copies of the budget. There was a budget presentation. All I believe is we're doing is we're agreeing to move ahead with our portion of what we're contributing towards the community college budget, and then there'll be a public hearing where the public will come in, they can speak for or against. It's the way it's been done here ever since I've been here, and they'll speak for or against, and then we vote on the total budget. But I think we have to agree that we're okay with our portion of what we're submitting, which is 60-some thousand. I don't have my sheet with me, but I believe that's what we're doing, unless I'm wrong.
No.
I believe that's what we're doing, and then there'll be a public hearing to vote on the final budget after both counties either agree or disagree.
Okay. I did ask at my meeting with the president of the college, in the event that the counties didn't approve the increase in support aid that was requested, what would be the college's next step? They have to go in and cut the expense side of the budget commensurately. So, it's still a tentative budget. There's still amendments that would need to be made and a public hearing that would need to be held.
How much is the budget going up compared to last year?
2%.
2%. About $39,000.
Yeah, we'll have that emailed out to everyone, so you have it in an automatic format. Yep.
I'd like to have the budget reviewed. I'd like to review the budget.
Further discussion on the resolution, Supervisor Lowe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a note to, just to make it clear that that meeting with SUNY Adirondack was actually official personnel and finance committees called to order both for Warren and Washington County.
I know in Bolton, for example, the budget officer produces a budget, then meets, that's a public document, then meets with the town board and produces a preliminary tentative budget. And it's that you hold a public hearing on, changes can be made, and then there's a vote. But the vote doesn't happen until you go to vote. The final vote is on the final budget. And we will have another vote. Any further discussion? Supervisor Brandon?
Thank you. On resolution 233, which is the extension to the SPCA contract, I talked about this in committee at the last go around, and I think I even talked about it when we approved the 6 months extension. We did not go out for bid for this contract, and it's over the limit that we have set in our purchasing policy for something that needs to go out to bid. We are in the process of bidding this out, the animal control services related to animal cruelty, and my understanding from our director of purchasing is that those bids are coming in next week. We will be able to vote on them July 20th. So I am not going, and I asked her about whether there was anything that we could do to try to contract with the Warren County SPCA in a way that would not violate our purchasing policy, and she said there really isn't. There wasn't anything that we could do because we're already paying them $50,000 this year, and it's an aggregate amount, so they're way over the $20,000 already. We should not be, in my mind, entering into a contract that breaches our own policy. And I am not going to make a mockery of our policy or our director. And I don't think anyone here on this board should, with all of the things that have been going on recently, with things like the regional planning board breaking their own rules and everyone in the public who knows about it thinking that, what are we doing? We're a bunch of, you know what? So I'm voting no on 230.
Further discussion on 233. Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've mentioned before my disdain for the process that we adhere to from time to time. And this is really related to the fact that often what will become in front of this board is a last minute, we need to approve this resolution and spend some money without any kind of advanced planning that really an organization and a organization that's over $150 million of annual budget should be able to adhere to. So I cannot support this primarily on principle from the fact that we're continuing to do last minute revisions, last minute revisals, last minute extensions that are not necessary. We develop correct processes within this organization to make this happen. And I am for all the other supervisors on this board to help support me with this going forward because I believe it's wrong. Thank you.
You're welcome. Further discussion on 233. Supervisor Lega.
If I may, that this contract has been a lot of discussion over the years. I have not supported the contract with the SPCA over the years as well. It's $100,000 a year for questionable items. We're the only county in the state that has such a contract for it. The reporting for reimbursement was lax up until recently. Recently, the billing comes in and it shows that they're billing out at $200 an hour rate on things, which brings things to light of this is quite an expensive service. As chairman of the Criminal Justice Public Safety Committee, I asked the attorney for the county on what our obligations are as a county to provide these animal services, and it's very narrow. And I'm sorry, at the committee meeting, I did not receive the attorney's reply to that for all the committee members to see. I also called the district attorney to see how many animal cruelty cases are prosecuted by his office. And on average, it might be about 5 a year. And so looking at what a county is obliged to take care of, you know, we're looking at perhaps about $20,000 a case is what we are paying for. I will, and during committee I did not support this resolution because it did come out of my committee. I will support this resolution and vote yes on it, but in theory, what Ms. Bramer brought up, this is in violation of our purchasing policy altogether.
Further discussion. Supervisor McGowan.
I brought this up before, especially with shared services, and I really do think that we all should look in, because there's a lot of towns that use the SPCA for the Warren County SPCA for dog control. Is if we make it a county-wide and the towns contribute, you know, their fair share, you know, what they would pay for their dog control and doing it, would it offset? Is that something that we could look into? You're shaking your head no.
Our town doesn't have the money to afford Warren County SPCA for our animal control.
From what I have talked to with Jim in that, if everybody was involved, the price would be cheaper. Do you have a contract now for dog control?
We have a dog control officer, ma'am.
All right, so if you were able to, eliminate that position and do it, I'm just,
Yeah, we're going a little afield here. Those are interesting points that could be brought up at committee going forward.
I would, I guess that's all. I'm sorry, and I apologize.
No,
I would just
no.
like to see that we, maybe really look into it a little deeper as more of a group, and see it, because it is such a tough issue, and it's been brought up many times.
Right. The existing resolution bridges us from the existing contract to the new contract. I think it spells it out pretty well. That's what's in front of us. I'm going to need to make the circle here. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Beatty, you haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, I will also be voting against this resolution. I don't like when we violate purchasing policy, and I have to talk to Julie Butler, and we are violating that policy. So on a technicality reason, clearly we shouldn't be voting yes on this. And I won't go into all the detail about having a consolidated county-wide policy of purchasing policy for the dogs and so forth. But I will tell you, Mr. McGowan, that Claudia, myself, and Julie have spent hours and hours digging into that, and we are the only county in the state. And I don't want to get off the path because I know we're talking about the resolution, but I'd be glad to talk to you when we're done. That it doesn't make any financial sense at all, and we don't have any legal responsibility or accountability to do that. So that's why we're the only county right now that does it, and we won't be probably going forward. So that's all I want to say, so I'll be voting no on that.
Sure. Supervisor Loeb, and then we'll
Yes.
go to Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to this resolution that we have in front of us, as opposed to the details which are more properly discussed in committee, agreeing with Supervisor Bramer as far as our compliance, and Supervisor B as far as our compliance, true. It's acknowledged we've signed a contract and we're not following all our policies, but that contract is good through June 30th. All the sheriff has said is, in order for us to maintain service, can we add 20 more days to this? I mean, we've already been doing it since January 1st, so 6 months have gone by. 20 more days isn't going to make us any more guilty. Let's add 20 more days so we can maintain the service, and then we'll begin following policies that are appropriate. And that's what's in front of us now, not the details of should we or shouldn't we be working with the SPCA or what they do. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you again, and I apologize, I did make this point earlier, and earlier my hearing was challenged. Hopefully my memory is going to be challenged this time. But during the committee meeting, I recall asking Sheriff York about the consequences of not renewing this and how we would cover our responsibilities. And if I'm not mistaken, he said the Sheriff's Department would handle it. So there's not really any consequences to not approving this bridge. That's all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Further discussion on 233.
If I could just comment
Right.
on Supervisor Wild's point regarding process, because I agree that the process is frustrating, that we've had 6 months, and to have this come up now, and I can just tell you from my perspective, I don't have the exact date in mind, but late April, early May, Julie Butler, the purchasing director, came to me essentially at a standstill on what to do with issuing a new RFP, and it was because there was such a diversity of opinion among the Board of Supervisors as to what should be included in that RFP, what scope of services, and as well as from the sheriff, and a lot of disagreement as to what Julie should be doing. She came to me for direction, and with Supervisor Leggett's assistance, we established a working group to get some of those individuals of differing opinions in the same room to try to discuss what their differences were and come to some sort of agreement as to what should go in that RFP, which is what we did. That's the RFP that was issued, and the unfortunate byproduct of that is that we have a situation where we won't be able to award a contract off of that RFP in time. So we do have to address the issue of what we want to do in that meantime during, when this contract expires. So I agree. There's frustration with the process, but I think hopefully we'll do it better moving forward.
We will hope so. Further discussion on 233. Discussion on other resolutions. All right.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was so engulfed in my thinking.
Supervisor McGowan.
Unfortunately, since I was away, I missed some, important committee meetings that I really wanted to attend to. So I, really sat down in some and read my package, quite thoroughly. And my concerning factors, I see a lot of numbers going out. And I have stated this in the past, we do rely on a lot of, the majority of our money is based on sales tax, and it's, based on how our economy does. And looking at the 5-year projections that we saw in the past, as I brought up in the past, I am concerned. And I would really like to, see a proposed, budget to feel a little bit more comfortable. But I see a lot of, especially in Resolution 249, a lot of figures going out, and it just concerns me that we rely on, and a lot of it is, this is the norm, this is what we've done in the past, and I think we really need to do our due diligence to be conscious about our spending.
Further discussion on resolutions? Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks. On 263, which is the railroad contract, I thought I should speak to that briefly since it did not come out of committee. We have been looking at this for a long time. Our county attorney, like you mentioned, has sent the letters, and at this point, Saratoga North Creek isn't doing anything for us beneficially under the contract. So I am in support of canceling it, even though it was, I was concerned about it a couple months ago, canceling it. Maybe they were still providing liability insurance or doing maintenance, but it turns out they're not out there doing the maintenance. They are not really maintaining the signals anymore. There's stuff that we're gonna have to pick up, but our DPW department is going to handle that, and I appreciate their work doing so.
Supervisor Simpson on 262.
Yes, the reason why that came out now is just recently, if you can remember the meetings we had discussions about whether we could use our attorney that we were contracting with, subject to some language, contractual language. We got that worked out. We got the information, and now we're under advisement council on our forward moving actions. So that's why we're here today with this resolution that did not come out of committee.
Any further discussion on 263? Closed discussion on 263. Once again, discussion on resolutions. And a closed discussion on all resolutions. Vote on resolutions.
Resolution 228, making supplemental appropriations. Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Strauss?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 229, amending Warren County budget. Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Strauss?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 233, amending Resolution 35 of 2018, authorizing temporary agreement with Warren County Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Strauss?
No.
Mr. Wild?
No.
Mr. Beatty?
No.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
I'm kind of conflicted. I don't like breaking the rules, even if it's for 3 weeks, but I do have a contract with Jim Fitzgerald to take care of our dogs in the town of Warrensburg, so I'm going to support this. Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
No.
Ms. Bramer? Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
No.
Mrs. Frazier?
No.
Mr. Simpson?
No.
Ms. Hogan?
No.
Chairman Conover?
Yes. I believe that fails.
That resolution fails with only 420 in favor, 472 against, 108 absent. Resolution 245, supporting Governor Cuomo's program bill to amend environmental conservation law in relation to prohibiting plastic carryout bags. Mr. Dickinson?
With all the issues that's going on here, it's still a good bill, step in the right direction, I vote yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 249, amending table of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan for 2018. Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
I am supporting this because under the airport manager, it does say job responsibilities may be expanded to include DPW responsibilities. I appreciate that. Whoever put that in there, thank you.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 257, establishing capital project H381, marketing and promotion of Floyd Bennett Memorial Airport. Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 260, authorizing appropriation of funds from occupancy tax reserve to the treasurer's office budget. Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 261, approving tentative operating budget for fiscal year 2018-19 for Adirondack Community College and providing for public hearing. Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Rico's.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Well, I'm concerned with the additional spending, but I will say yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
No.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Conover?
Yes. All right. Voice vote on the rest, motion on the rest. Mr. Simpson, Mr. Dickinson on the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now I'll offer the privilege of the floor to anyone in the audience wishing to address the Board of Supervisors.
I apologize, but I would be remiss if I didn't thank this board for their support of the campership program, because you indeed supported those 80 campers that Supervisor Simpson was talking about. Our role is just to supervise and coordinate the program with the schools, the parents, and the camp. And it was a real good day at our office when that gentleman walked in and said, all the kids can go, because I remember when I was a kid going to camp, and I'm sure these kids will as well. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Announcements. Supervisor Brandon.
Okay, this is maybe not really an announcement, but I did attend the Regional Planning Board's meeting the other day, and I do appreciate the efforts to fix the board. I am still concerned, and I still think there's a lot of redundancy there. I was disappointed that the board did not take any action on the executive director, who I think most people know I'm not too pleased with his performance, and I think others are concerned about that. I think we do need to start looking for a new executive director who will provide the transparency and the accountability that we need. And I think someone like Jennifer Switzer would do a good job in that role. She has a lot of experience there, and she could whip that thing into shape. I think Beth Gillis is great programmatically, but I'm not sure that she's able to step up into the ED role. So I'd like to see us really seriously considering putting someone forward to the board that they can hire. Thank you.
You're welcome. Supervisor Simpson.
I would just like to remind the board and everybody that the Cornell Cooperative Extension Golf benefit is on August 25th at Cronin's. And you can contact me or Dr. Jim Seeley, and we can get you signed up.
Supervisor Dickinson.
Two things. In response to Ms. Bramer, the board decided two major issues there at the chairman's prompting, and decided to hold steady with that until we made some progress with rewriting the rules and regs before we do anything further. It'll take a little longer, but I think it's the safer thing to do, and I think it's the proper thing to do. Secondly, I just wanted to give you a brief update of my take on Americade. As you all know, Americade is changing. The Americaders are aging out. The numbers are down a little, but the organizers, the doctors, have done a wonderful job. And they closed down a block of the village this year and had a block party. It was an absolutely tremendous success. They got all age groups, kids to grandparents. They had all kinds of events. They had food and drink and music, and it was just a wonderful thing. The participation was unbelievable. I did have an opportunity to speak to the Americaders. They had an event at Fort William Henry, and they invited me over to welcome them there. It also was a wonderful event. I had a really good time. The Americaders come here to have a good time, and they were ready. It's just a big party, and it was well attended and under control. I think we're doing well with Americade, and I'd be quite anxious, as you could all tell, to give Mike's response to how well we did this year.
Further announcements. Supervisor Babe.
Two things. First of all, again, thank you, Joanne. I know a lot of people thank you, and she was kind enough to leave off a book for me, Public Administration Concepts and Cases. She knows that I like to delve into some of those things. So thanks for the book, Joanne. We're going to miss you, that's for sure. The second thing is, I did also attend that Lake George, Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board meeting. We did come out with some good things, but I just want to remind people that the past loans, although many of them were very good loans, there are some very, very questionable loans. And I've spent hours and hours and hours reading through some of these loans. I don't think anybody else has. And there's a significant amount of questions that I have concerning whether they were done correctly, whether they followed Title IX, which is they're authorized to be a needs loan, and all these other things. I won't go into detail. But I can tell you that I'm not one for whitewashing the past and saying, hey, we committed 6 robberies, we finally caught you, so let's forget that, don't do it going forward. I'm not that type of guy. I think we need to cleanse it, no question, but we need to find out what has gone wrong, and people need to be held accountable. And so whatever that means, wherever that takes us, but this is just the beginning. This is not the end, just because we've got a new chairman and so forth. So this is going to be a lot. And next week, I believe we've asked Walter Young to come again. I specifically asked that because we haven't even delved into any of the default loans. How did that process go? Did they collect on the assets? Did they put the assets up for a public auction like you're supposed to? On and on and on. So this is going to be kind of complicated. So I just hope we don't all start singing Kumbaya and thinking that this is great going forward. We made positive steps, but there's a lot of this past that needs to be brought to light for full transparency. So, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anyone else have any announcements? Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you. I wanted to thank the Americators, City of Glens Falls, and our county tourism folks for working closer together, I think, than ever we have. This past Wednesday, we had a special Take a Bite celebration, a weekly event that we do on Wednesdays in the City of Glens Falls throughout the summer, late spring and early summer. We had a number of bikers down there and hope to grow on that in the future. Also, a few minutes ago, Warren County Head Start started their annual Community Day celebrations down in the City of Glens Falls. If anyone has time this afternoon, I think running till 3 o'clock, they're going to be down there sharing information. Thanks.
Supervisor Stroud.
All right. So it's June 15th. In 2 days, we have the 243rd anniversary of whose death? Joseph Warren. The namesake for our county. Joseph Warren was a Boston physician who joined the colonists' effort in 1767 with the passage of the Townshend Acts. He was appointed to the Boston Committee of Correspondence. He was the Grand Master of the St. Andrew's Lodge of Freemasons. He delivered orations in commemoration of the Boston Massacre. He drafted the Suffolk Resolves, which were endorsed by the Continental Congress. He served as president of the Revolutionary Massachusetts Provincial Congress. In 1774, with the passing of the Intolerable Acts, Warren declared that no obedience is due. In 1774, he authored Free America. And he enlisted Paul Revere and William Dawes on April 18, 1775 to leave Boston and spread the alarm that the British garrison was setting out to raid Concord and arrest John Hancock and Samuel Adams. Warren said, "These fellows say we won't fight. By heaven, I hope I shall die upon my knees in blood." And he participated in the April 19, 1775 battles of Lexington and Concord. On June 15, 243 years ago, the Continental Congress appointed George Washington the commanding general of the Continental Army and was bound for Boston. Warren was commissioned a major general in the colony's militia shortly before June 17 of 1775. And rather than exercise his rank, he chose to serve as a private soldier. General Israel Putnam and Colonel William Prescott requested Warren serve as a commander. Warren declined the command, believing that Prescott and Putnam were capable enough of commanding. He stayed back and fought the British so that the rest of the farmer army soldiers could leave and be safe to fight the British another day. So, out of ammunition, he remained. The third and final British assault at Breed's Hill, he was killed. June 17, 1775, he's referred to as the hero of the Battle of Bunker Hill, and some say he became the embodiment of our young nation's sacrifice. And historians put him in as one of the famous founders of our nation, along with Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, Samuel Adams, and John Adams, and that's why we named our county after Joseph Warren. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait.
Oh, excuse me.
I had,
Supervisor McGowan, excuse me.
I just want to thank Supervisor Bramer and Supervisor Beatty. I happened to catch the watch, not that I want to make anything controversial here, but I was very proud to see the two different sides sitting down and, agreeing and working together and speaking, their well, and just working together was something that I really wanted to in my campaign, is both sides being able to sit down and work so calmly together. So I want to thank you too for keeping your gloves off stage. So,
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn? At Ms. Frazier, Mr. Wild on the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, everyone. Thank you.
Public Affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcomed. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.